Avs faithful, how are we doing? Welcome back to another video here on the Parker Love Sports YouTube channel. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your day to spend them here with me on the channel. Now in today's video, we are going to be going over the Colorado Avalanche trade deadline moves. There were 5 trades made by the Avalanche around the deadline. Obviously, I think we made 1 on deadline day, and then we made 2 the 2 previous days before that for a total of 5 trades, and we're going to be going over all of those, and then we're going to be plugging in a potential playoff lineup. Now, I'm not going to have Landeskog included in it because he could return for the playoffs, but he could also not return for the playoffs. So I'm just not going to include him for now until we get word that he is going to be coming back for the playoffs. Now, before we get into this video, all I ask is that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as the support is greatly appreciated. I'm trying to hit 500 subscribers, so if you could subscribe and help me reach that goal, that would mean the absolute world to me. And if you go ahead and leave a like, that helps push the video out to many more people so that they can subscribe and help grow this community here on YouTube. So if you do that, thank you so much for your, thank you just so much for subscribing or leaving a like. And now with that being said, let's get into the trade deadline moves. But before that, I just want to remind you that Jesus is king, and I just pray that you give your life to him. He's got a plan and a purpose for you. And if you truly accept Jesus with your whole heart and believe that he died on the cross for your sins with your whole heart and then rose from the dead 3 days later, then you'll go to heaven. It's that simple, it's that easy. It's not through any works or going to church that we do here on heaven. Those things are good and should do them. But the only thing that saves us and gets us to heaven is Jesus and his sacrifice on the cross. A lot of people won't like that I'm spreading this message because, I just know a lot of people won't like it, but it's important to me. And even though I have a small platform here on YouTube, I'm going to continue to spread the gospel. And, I don't care if you dislike it. It's something I care about as a Christian. So, yeah. But with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into the trade deadline moves. So the first trade that was made was with the Philadelphia Flyers, and we sent them Ryan Johansson and a 2025 first round pick. Now, this first round pick is a top 10 protected pick, meaning if in 2025 we have a top 10 pick, then we have the option to defer that first round pick to 2026. That's essentially what protected picks mean. If you don't know, they don't have that in the NFL, which is what I mostly cover here. But yeah, it is a top 10 protected pick. And in exchange, we received defenseman Sean Walker and a 2026 fifth round pick. Now, Sean Walker is 29 years old, and he is a solid puck-moving offensive defenseman, but he can hold his own defensively as well, and it's a solid pickup. And when I first saw this, I was like, dang, we got a really good defensive core. I mean, we had a good one before, but now that we've added Sean Walker to the core, we got one of the best, if not the best, defensive core in the National Hockey League. But this move was a prelude to the trade that we made next, and it felt like, honestly, it was one deal for the other deal. Like, they were made at the same time, essentially, to make sure that we sent out Ryan Johansson, got that contract off the books, brought in a solid defenseman because we also need to replace a defenseman, because in the second trade, we shipped off Bowen Byram to Buffalo in exchange for our second line center of the future in Casey Mittelstadt. Now, this is a solid pickup. I really like the Mittelstadt pickup. I feel like he was one of the top players that was available at the deadline to acquire. And of course, we had to ship out a very important piece to our core in Bowen Byram to get him. But the nice thing about Casey Mittelstadt is, yes, he is a free agent after the season, but he's a restricted free agent, meaning we have the rights essentially. And if someone offer sheets him, we have the ability to match that offer sheet and give him the same contract. He has to accept the offer sheet, of course. And then if he does, we have the option to match the offer sheet. Or if we don't, then I believe it's like a first round pick or whatnot of a compensation that you have to pay up for signing an RFA. But it's nice because he does have team control of still being an RFA, and we can sign him to probably like a 3-4 year contract extension at the end of the season. But it was tough losing Bowen Byram because I remember the previous 2 years, like 2016, 17, 18, around that time, that's when I was starting to get really into the NFL draft, like I am now with the coverage on the channel. But in 2019, that's when I started to get into the NHL draft, and I remember going over to my grandparents' house and watching the draft with my grandfather. And I remember us wanting Bowen Byram, and then we selected him 4th overall. And I just remember all the hype when he was a prospect with the Vancouver Giants, and the headlines. This is Cale Makar's defensive partner of the future, and just injuries kind of kept him off the ice a lot of the time for the Avalanche. And I still think he has tremendous upside to be a great player. So losing Bowen Byram does sting for me. But when you have a chance to bring in someone like Casey Middlestat to truly replace the second line center that we've been missing since Kadri left after the Cup run, I think we had to do it. So this is a solid pickup for the Avalanche. Next up, we have in our third trade, we have the Colorado Avalanche acquiring Brandon Duhaime from the Minnesota Wild for a 2026 third-round pick. Before I get into this one, I just want to ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel like I did at the top of the video. It helps the channel out a lot, and we're trying to hit 500 subscribers as soon as possible. But jumping back into this trade, Brandon Duhaime is a solid, I'd say solid bottom line forward. He's going to play on that 4th line, so he's going to be, just one of those guys, one of those depth guys. And of course, we got him from the Wild. Now, it did cost a 3rd-round pick, which in my opinion is a little steep and a little rich for Brandon Duhaime, but I think we just needed to add depth, especially when you look out what's going on in the West. You got Vegas loading up. You got Edmonton loading up. We had to acquire depth because recently we've started to rely on the top line of McKinnon, Rantanen, Lehkonen. We had Nichushkin, which he finally came back. But we kind of relied on our top guys and not so much our depth. So we needed to add depth, and Brandon Duhaime does just that. Now, the 4th trade we made, which was yesterday. Well, I'm not going to say yesterday because this is kind of a weird time when I'm recording, and you guys are going to see this the day after the trade deadline. But anyway, we also acquired, on the same day we acquired Brandon Duhaime, we acquired forward Yakov Trinan and defenseman Graham Swartz. And we didn't acquire him officially. We acquired his rights, which means we have the right to sign him, but he can say no. But yeah, so we acquired his rights. He's a prospect. In exchange, we traded to Nashville defenseman Jeremy Hanzel, who was our 7th-round pick. He was one of the later round picks in this past draft in 2023 that took place over July. Yeah, I mean, I liked Jeremy Hanzel, but when you're going for it, you got to give up someone like that. And then we also gave up our 2025 third-round pick. But Yakov Trenin, he's going to be a big physical forward, and he's going to kind of be that enforcer just a little bit since we traded away Curtis McDermott, I think a week before the deadline, and I'm not including this trade on here because I wanted to kind of focus on the trades that took place around the deadline within a couple days. But yeah, Yakov Trenin, he's going to be a 3rd-line forward for us, and I think a solid depth option as well. Can score, but yeah, he's going to be a big forward. He's not going to be afraid to hit, and I think this is a solid pickup for the Avs. Sucks losing a prospect like Jeremy Hanzel, who I did have high hopes for. 3rd-round pick, maybe a little rich, but we are going for it this year. We need to acquire depth, and we're going on another cup run, so you have to give up picks, and you have to give up some prospects as well. Jeremy Hanzel, we had to give up a good player in Bowen Byram. We're going for it. We are officially going for it, and I feel like we are the Los Angeles Rams of the NHL world because we love to trade our picks. I think with the next trade that we made, which happened on the trade deadline day, I think we have a total of like 7 picks in the next 2 drafts, or like 5 picks, something like that. We do not have a lot of picks in these next few drafts because we've been wheeling and dealing to get players, but hey, that's all right. If it results in another cup, it's fine by me. But finally, the 5th trade we made today, and I thought this was going to be a prelude to something. I even tweeted it out, but the Anaheim Ducks acquired forward Ben Myers from us, who we signed out of the University of Minnesota. He was one of the university, not one of, but he was the University of Minnesota's captain, and he was a college free agent who we signed. Kind of didn't really work out for us. I think he had a couple goals, but he never had an assist as a member of the Colorado Avalanche, which is crazy. But yeah, Ben Meyers never really worked out for Colorado, so hopefully it works out for him in Anaheim. Of course, he played a lot in the AHL with the Colorado Eagles, which, funny enough, Anaheim's current head coach was the former head coach of the Colorado Eagles, so he knows Ben Meyers pretty well, and hopefully he can get something started there. But in exchange, we picked up a 2024 fifth-round pick, so kind of adding to the picks because we dealt so many away. But yeah, that was all 5 trades made the day of the deadline, which was this one. We made 2 before, which was acquiring Yakov Trinan and Brandon Duhaime. Those were the 2 made the day before. And then 2 days before the trade deadline, that's when we acquired Casey Mittelstadt. And we also acquired, oh my gosh, who was it? Well, let's go back here. And Sean Walker. That's when we acquired Sean Walker and Casey Mittelstadt. But now, here is kind of what I have as a projected lineup potentially for the NHL playoffs. Now, like I said, I'm not including Landeskog because of IR. I don't know if he's going to be here or not. But here's the top line with McKinnon, Nathan McKinnon at the 1C. And, of course, you got Mikko Rantanen on that top line as well. And Arturi Lehkonen, who we acquired 2 trade deadlines ago, I believe. Yeah, 2 trade deadlines ago, we acquired Arturi Lehkonen. And then I kind of have just the pictures of the lines going. And then the second line, of course, Casey Mittelstadt, who we just acquired. Valeri Nichushkin, who just came back from the Players Assistance Program. So it's good to have him back. He scored the game-winning goal tonight as I'm recording this. And, yeah, good for him getting the help he needed, and now he is back. And then, of course, Jonathan Drouin, who I've honestly been he's had kind of ups and downs. He's had the ebbs and flows. So, yeah, Jonathan Drouin, I like. Wouldn't mind seeing him sign a contract extension in the offseason. But yeah, he's been solid, kind of started off a little bit slow, but then has started to pick it up as the season has gone on. And so that is what the second line currently looks like. And the third, or I guess the third line, which this is all projected. I'm not saying this is exactly what's going to happen. But we got Ross Colton, who we picked up in the offseason, Miles Wood, who signed a 6-year contract with us in the offseason, and then Yakov Trinan, who we just acquired from the Nashville Predators. And so this is what the third line looks like for the Avalanche. And then the fourth line is Brandon Duhaime. And honestly, you can probably sub him out for Andrew Cogliano if you want. Of course, Logan O'Connor at center when he inevitably comes back from his injury. And then Zach Parise as well when he inevitably comes back from his injury as well. And so this is what I think the playoff lineup could look like. And I feel like you got to include Andrew Cogliano in here somewhere now that I'm thinking about it, but I don't have him in here right now. Here are the extra skaters potentially. Like I mentioned, Andrew Cogliano, Chris Wagner, who we called up from the AHL a few days ago, might send him back down. I don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, he could be an extra skater. And then Landeskog, I have him as an extra skater because of the IR stint, but if he's healthy, he is definitely going to be included in the lineup. Next up, the projected defenseman, of course, the one pairing, and in my opinion, and I feel like a lot of people's opinion, the best defensive pairing in the entire National Hockey League, and that is in Devon Toews and Cale Makar, and I kind of switched up their photos there, so I'm going to go ahead and fix that real quick. There we go. So I fixed it. Devon Toews is on the left side because he is a lefty shot, and then Cale Makar is on the right side because of course he is a right-handed shot defenseman. Moving on to the second pair, we have Sam Girard and, of course, Josh Manson. And yeah, Sam Girard started to pick it up. You know, the past few seasons he had been struggling, and he's been picking it up a little bit this season. Than Josh Manson, more of the big-bodied, kind of a physical defenseman, and hasn't had quite the seasons that I've expected him to have since we re-signed him after the Cup run. Still like Josh Manson, think he's solid, but hadn't done quite what I expected him to do when we acquired him from Anaheim And well, yeah, we acquired him from Anaheim 2 years ago. Then he was solid in the Cup run, and then last season was hurt a little bit. Wasn't spectacular. And this season he's been all right, but still a solid pairing there as our second pair defenseman. And then the third pair is newly acquired defensemen Sean Walker and Jack Johnson. Now, I didn't include an extra skaters for the defensemen. So if you want to include Caleb Jones as the extra defenseman, or heck, if you want to even sub in Caleb Jones for Jack Johnson and have Jack Johnson as the extra defenseman, I don't blame you. But as of right now, this is the bottom pairing the bottom pairing defenseman that I have right now. Of course, Sean Walker and Jack Johnson there. And finally, moving on to the projected goalies, of course, the starter in Alexander Georgiev. He's been solid. Maybe struggled a little bit because he's had to start so many games in a row when we had Ivan Prosvetov as the backup. Now that we got Justus Annunen as our backup, I think he's getting a little bit more rest, but he still has a high workload. But yeah, he's been solid, and he, of course, is the number one goaltender. And then the number two goaltender is Justus Annunen, who was one of our top prospects, and we actually acquired the pick to get Justus Annunen from the Matt Duchene trade all the way back when. So, yeah, and I've been surprised by Justus Annunen. He's played pretty solid. When he's had his previous stints in the NHL, he's been all right. He's had like a solid game, and then he struggled, and then sent down, but hasn't had a long stint. But then when he's been called up this time around to be the backup, had a little bit of a rough outing coming back from the All-Star break. I believe it was against New Jersey, I think is the game he started on that road trip. Struggled a little bit, and then the past two starts, which both have been against the Blackhawks, but he's had two shutouts in a row, so good for him. I'm a big fan of Justus Annunen, one of our top prospects, or I guess he is our top goaltending prospect, and I hope that he can develop behind Georgiev and maybe be our goaltender of the future. I don't think he's a starter necessarily, but he's a solid backup, and I'm glad that he is getting playing time in the NHL now. But that is going to be it. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below on these moves that the Avs made. Heck, even leave your line combos, your defense pairings, and your goaltenders in the comment section below. I'm curious to see what the lineup and the roster will look like for the playoff that you think they'll look like. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel down below. My name is Parker, and thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.